All right, guys, how is it going? We are back with another wonderful reaction video. This time is going to be something a little strange. Evidently, the Dutch ate their prime minister. Right. Did not realize that. Yeah. So this video is called The Time the Dutch Ate Their Prime Minister. It's a short animated documentary. The original channel is called History Matters, and the link to that video will be in the description section down below as always. And this is something I'm pretty curious about because, wow, they ate their prime minister. So like we definitely got to check this out. I can't not do a reaction to this. I mean, this is crazy. So without further ado, let's switch my screen over. We're going to find out what's going on with this.
Historically speaking, prime ministers aren't food. But this little
Right.
fact wasn't enough to stop those go-getting Dutch from chowing down on their own in 1672. Now, this raises a pretty obvious question: why? Why did the Dutch eat their prime minister? How does someone go from being in a position of immense power to becoming food for an angry mob? So, a bit of background. In the mid-17th century, the young Dutch Republic was in a difficult situation. It was surrounded by hostile powers who were pretty keen to carve it up or at least permanently subjugate it. You see, the Dutch Republic was rich, incredibly rich, mostly due to its
VOC.
near monopoly on trade with Southeast Asia, which everybody else wanted. Having so many enemies meant the war was somewhat inevitable. So the title of Prime Minister didn't exist back in 1653, and the formal head of the Dutch Republic was called the Stadtholder. Previously, this office had been held by the Princes of Orange and was essentially an elected monarchy. However, as of 1650, the office was left vacant after a quarrel between William II and officials from Holland. In the decades following this, the country was deeply divided between two political groups. The first group was the statists, those who favoured
What exactly is this little thing down here? This is not what the Netherlands looks like right now, I don't think. This here, I don't know. Maybe they expanded into it, and this is that, because there's that one little weird area down there in the bottom, right, between like Germany and Belgium, and it's just kind of like crammed right down there. So maybe they expanded into and connected this territory to it. I'm not quite sure.
The country was deeply divided between two political groups. The first group was the statists, those who favoured a loose federation and less centralised power, and the second group were the Orangists, who wished for the return of a monarchical system under the House of Orange and a deeply centralised state. Without a stadtholder, the effective head of the country was the Grand Pensionary of Holland, the richest and most powerful of the United Provinces. And the man who held this position was Johan de Witt. De Witt was in many respects a moderate whose primary interest was protecting the flow of trade, and thus he wanted to avoid war at all costs. As such, de Witt prioritised the creation of a strong navy to deter anyone from interrupting said trade. Now, this policy worked well initially. When England fought a war in 1665 to pry some Dutch trade away from it, the Dutch promptly and decisively crushed the English navy. After this, de Witt was at the height of his popularity and power, and so sought to use this to settle his dispute with the Orangists, who were led by the young William of Orange. As such, he implemented a law which meant that Holland no longer recognised the office of stadtholder, making it impossible for William to have control of the entire country should he rise to power. To put it mildly, this upset the Orangists, but there wasn't much they could do yet. Things went south in 1672 when King Louis XIV of France decided that the Dutch Republic's existence had gone on for a bit too long, and so he invaded. And things went poorly.
From France, is that what I said?
Yet. Things went south in 1672 when King Louis XIV of France decided that the Dutch Republic's existence had gone on for a bit too long, and so he invaded. And things went poorly for the Dutch. Very poorly. So much so that 1672 is referred to as the Rampjaar, which directly translates to a year which in retrospect can safely be described as being pants. With the French army rampaging through the country, the Orangists demanded de Witt's head and made a failed attempt to assassinate him. He resigned the office of Grand Pensionary, but this wasn't enough since he could potentially return, and so the Orangists arrested de Witt's brother. When de Witt went to visit him, he was ambushed and killed by a mob, and said mob subsequently ate him and his brother. Not all of them, that would be uncouth, but they did cook and eat some of them. We know this from several sources who described it as actually being a fairly organised display of cannibalism, which is pretty rare. In the end, he was killed because the people of his country were in a state of raw panic. And the Dutch mob ate him because they hated him. He had kept their rightful monarch away from power, and so they sought to humiliate him in death. And in case you're wondering, the reaction to their deaths in the Netherlands was that it was justified, and the new stadtholder, William, quickly pardoned everyone. So if you only take one thing away from this, when leaders mess things up royally by losing a war and alienating half of their own country, they move on to the list of things eligible to be eaten. Something to remember if you ever want to go into politics. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I did enjoy that. If you guys enjoyed that, also go over to the original channel, show them some love. They have a ton of other good videos, it did seem. So, yeah, that's wow. So, you guys ate your prime minister. That's, you know, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah. So, some of the comments here says he was the most dedicated prime minister to keeping the nation fed in history. That's funny. So, anyways, that's crazy. I'm going to get up out of here, and you guys have a super fun, awesome day, and I will see you in the next video. All right, take care.